So when I was 17, I was like, I want to raise my right hand. I want to test myself. I want to see if I've got what it takes. I found myself for the first time in my life where I was failed. We've got to figure something out. Nobody's coming to help us. It's on us. We got to get off the X or we're going to be wiped out.
Some people wait for opportunity. Others fight for it. Welcome to Tactical Wealth, the show where discipline, service, and real-world experience become pathways to financial power. I'm your host, Kaj Larson. On each episode, we bring you the stories and the wisdom of those who have gone from boots on the ground to successful careers, from military to wealth, and how they've done it so you can apply those insights to your own mission and your own life. This is Tactical Wealth, from military to money. Welcome back to another episode of Tactical Wealth. I am super excited today because I have brought the Army to me. I have 22-year retired Lieutenant Colonel, Army veteran, Carl Churchill. Carl is an intel officer, and after that transitioned, spent some time in the corporate world, and became the co-founder of Alpha Coffee, which is a multi-million-dollar coffee brand and donates 10% of its profits to the Grounds for Good program. That's really exciting. I want to hear all about it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Carl, great to have you.
It's awesome to be here, Kosh.
Yeah. So we were talking before, like me, you entered the military service at 17 years old.
Yeah, 17. I grew up on military bases.
Army brat?
Army brat, yeah. My mom's German. My dad was Army, and my stepdad, Army Ranger from Vietnam. Grew up with, Army Rangers, Green Berets, that were my coaches, my teachers. And so when I was 17, I was like, I want to raise my right hand. I want to test myself. I want to see if I've got what it takes. And and then from there, my NCOs pulled me aside, said, hey, you're a pretty smart kid. You ought to apply for this Green for Gold scholarship. And I did that, got it, and then went to the dark side and commissioned.
Yeah, trust me, I know all about it. Yeah. So yeah, it's really is wild to enter the service at 17. At the time, like, you think I'm ready for this. Now looking back in our, with all of this wisdom that we've accumulated, you're like, oh man, I was a kid.
Yeah, totally a kid. I mean, and I came in a few years after the Vietnam War had ended. It was a transition. A lot of the guys, my bunkmate in the reception station had just gotten out of prison and had, was sent to the judge, and the judge said Army or military or
it's
prison.
This apocryphal story. Like, guy gets in trouble and the judge is like, you got two choices, son. Like, that actually happened.
That actually happened. Yeah. And so it was eye-opening for me going in, but it was amazing. I grew up quickly, and I wouldn't say I loved every minute of it, but I loved it.
Yeah, amazing. And when you entered the service, did you know that you were going to do your 20 and retire?
No, actually, I wanted to go in, prove myself, save some money for college. And, at 17, you don't really know. You're thinking like in 3, 4, 5-year blocks of time. Yeah. And, just over time, it just felt right to stay in. There was one more hill to climb, one more thing to do, and yeah.
Amazing. And now, so you entered the service when? Like in
1979.
What?
Yeah, I turned 64 last week.
What,
so I'm an old dude.
Wait, is the Army got like some secret reverse aging anti-Benjamin Button program? Yeah, coffee, right?
No,
yeah.
I mean, thanks. I think that what's really important in life is to just, stay young, to keep sharp, keep physically fit, and and that's the solution. Yeah.
Well, especially when you're building a business, you have little choice, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. There's no days off.
Yeah. That is so true. Awesome. So tell me about your service a little bit. What were some of the highlights, some of the lowlights of your time?
Yeah. I actually, so the Green to Gold program, you go through ROTC. So I went, I applied to 4 different schools. My NCO said, you're a smart kid, you need to apply to an Ivy League school. So I applied to Princeton, got accepted, thought about it. Back then there was no internet, so I went to the library. I'm like, Princeton's in New Jersey? I don't want to go to New Jersey. So I ended up going to the University of Utah. Never regretted that decision. Mountains, desert, Red Rock, loved it. Was a distinguished military grad there, had some amazing NCOs and officers that were my instructors.
And they have a pretty robust ROTC program there?
They do, yeah. Yeah, it's, and we did things like, we did mountaineering, winter survival, like that sort of outdoor lifestyle I really loved. But I think like you, I was a poli-sci undergrad,
Poli-sci to fly.
Yeah, that's it. And I ended up going MI. I really enjoyed military intelligence. But I stayed muddy boots most of the time. I was like 9th Infantry, 3rd Infantry, 1st Armor, and then SOCOM or SOCUR. And yeah, I mean, probably the highlight of my time in the military was as I was a LURS company commander back when they had long-range surveillance teams down at division level. That's a 11 series infantry officer position, but as an MI guy, they let me do it. And if I could have stayed in that job my whole career, I would have been a happy man.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, I talk about this all the time, we'll get into your co-founder and the genesis of your company, but my co-founder was a Navy intelligence officer. And so we always talk about this fusion between intel and operations, how they operate hand in glove. Yeah. And that template, I don't know, tell me if this is true for you, but for me, that template kind of like set the tone for my company, right?
Absolutely.
Trying to be smart and then trying to execute.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's the yin and the yang, I mean, you really need to be intentional. You need to think about it. I like to begin with the end in mind and, do the research, figure it out, and then execute. So you can do too much of one, plan. We say, I tell my leaders in the company, ready, fire, aim, because if you're like ready, aim. You have to pull the trigger, you have to do it, adjust fire, figure out where you're going. But it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. I want to get into the entrepreneurship speak, but yeah, I'm constantly like translating my military experience, which is like, walk rounds onto target, ready, fire, aim, right, recalibrate, get back on paper, right. And in the entrepreneurial world, we'd say like iterate, and continue to pivot. That's crazy.
But it's the same thing. I mean, those principles work for a reason, right?
Exactly. I mean, look, that's the thesis of why we're here, right? Is that those foundational things that we do in the service can inform us later in life and help us climb 100%. And be successful. So, all right. So when did you transition out of service? So you retired out of the Army after?
Yeah. So I actually, I was in Europe. I was stationed over there.
At SOCUR?
Yeah. No, actually I was with 3rd Infantry.
Okay.
Decided to get out. I was deploying a lot. I had gotten frustrated with the military where, you had to stand in line and wait to be, I was getting promoted below the zone, but still like after a 20-year career, somebody who went in 5 years ahead of you was still going to be ahead of you. And so I got out, moved to San Diego.
Best city in America.
It is a cool place to live for sure. Yeah. And, I was selling surgical instruments to like neurosurgeons, and I made a ton of money, but I didn't have a sense of purpose. And so got a call from Sakir, said, hey, would you come back in for a short tour? Did that. The Balkans were happening back then. I went back in, did that. And then kind of the rose-colored glasses came off. Like I missed the camaraderie. I missed the sense of mission. But I got back in. I'm like, it's the big green machine again. And so I decided that I was going to not go back on active duty, but I was going to go into the reserves. So I actually finished my career in the reserves, did a lot of cool things, loved it. So my transition was this sort of 12 years of halfway in, halfway out. I got picked up for colonel, like full bird, and branch called me and said, hey, here's what the next 5 years like. We're going to send you to war college. You're going to be on a joint staff, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm never going to lead troops again. It's all politics from here. And I'm like, but you know, that 17-year-old E1 really wants to pin the full bird on. Yeah. And she's like, well, women, you know, my wife is way smarter than I am. She just looked at me and she said, you achieved it. Whether you pin it on or don't pin it on, you were picked up by the board. Your career meant something. Like you always said, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about retirement. And so next day I resigned, and you know, and that was my career.
Well, it's funny, you're hinting at something that I always say, like half in jest, right? Like, you know, I transitioned out after lieutenant commander after 2004, partially because I looked at the career glide path, and you know, same thing. I said, listen, if I'm going to be mid-level management somewhere, I'm going to be mid-level management at Goldman Sachs, which you did, right? Like, so you and then ultimately you transitioned out now. But you were always kind of working for the man, not working for yourself, even right after you retired.
Yeah, so when I first got out, like I was drawn to startup companies because it felt like the military, a small team trying to achieve a difficult mission. And I loved that world. You know, before tech, there was telecom. So I was in the telecom and the tech industry. And I ended up with a startup company. You know, we went from 12 employees to 150. We had a $10 million offer for it. The founder, you know, my wife and I had bought into some ownership in there. The founder had the majority stake in it, and he turned the offer down. This was 2009. And we did software for the construction mortgage industry. So you know this story ends badly. So we went from, you know, thinking like, hey, we've got a nice chunk of change to start our next thing, to slightly less than zero. You know, we were bankrupt 6 months. Great Recession started 6 months later, we were bankrupt. So that's where Lori and I found ourselves. And we were literally drinking some coffee that my brother-in-law had roasted. Lori's from Washington State. I met her when I was up at Fort Lewis, now JBLM. And and drinking some of Josh's great coffee. And I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. What if we got Josh to roast for us? And we, you know, started a coffee company. We could do it out of the basement. We could break every child labor law there is, you know, let our kids help us build this business. And she's like, hey, I've held your hand and jumped off the high dive so many times in our relationship. Let's do it.
Wow. Now that sounds like an epic co-founder. Okay, before we get into the beginning stages of your company, I want to call it training timeout, like TTO, because you said something really fascinating there in the beginning of your story, in the beginning of your origin story, and that it was this sort of failure that, you know, you were subsumed by larger events, right? Like no idea is born before its time, but no idea can either also escape its time. The great financial crisis comes, the company that you're at is done. But there's also like a lesson in hubris there, right? Because there was money on the table. And this is, I would say, contrarian entrepreneurial advice. But when I talk to entrepreneurs, I always say it's almost never bad to ring the cash register, even if it's early.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Like, because that exit that was on the table may not have been $100 million exit or a $500 million exit, but it's still a life-changing exit, right? Especially at that time.
For sure. Yeah, I'll tell you that before that one, there were two others. I mean, we started a company, me and two other guys. We raised $3 million in angel investment capital. Started a internet telephony company back in the day when you still paid for long distance, and we were trying to break that model. And we went to Cisco and pitched them, and I'll never forget that day after we pitched them. They're like, yeah, go ahead and have a seat in the lobby. They have this big room, everybody's sitting in it. They call us back in, they say, we're in for 50 million. And we're like, not that it matters, but was that 1-5 or 5-0? They're like, no, 50 million, but here's the deal. You raise 3 million, we'll match it with 6. You get started. As you raise more capital, we'll match it. This was in, .com days, early days, and that ended badly as well, and I mean, my definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who goes from one setback to the next with no loss of enthusiasm. It's like, you just have to be that guy who's, November, Foxtrot, Quebec, never freaking quit and just keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I do also that. Yeah, like, look, we share the same DNA because I'm always just like, never ring the bell is our version of it. Never ring that bell. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that like you charge like straight through walls. Sometimes you have to learn how to go around walls, over walls, under walls. For sure. You got to get through no matter what. Yeah. So this is fascinating, and I think it's something that we haven't like really talked about a lot. Quite often in the rearview mirror of success, right? Mm-hmm. Now we drive these fancy EVs, right? But if we look, it wasn't always driving fancy EVs. If you look in the rearview mirror, there's a string of what people would call failures prior to that, but those are really the building blocks of future success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the military, we study successes and failures for that reason. In the Army, we did the AAR, the After Action Review. And, it's like, what went well, what didn't go well. And I've learned so much from the failures. And you control what you can and you let go of what you can't. And you just adjust and, keep pushing forward. So
you have several companies that are like right at the 2-yard line, and then because of the macro environment, whether it's the .com bust or the great financial crisis, those go to zero. What then makes you identify the niche or the opportunity for the company that you started now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, at that point, Lori and I sat down and we said, we were in a financial crisis. Luckily, we had put some money away in an emergency fund, but we, sold the BMW, we were in a situation where I couldn't find a job. A lot of people don't remember that the Great Recession, it was like over 10% unemployment. 1 in 10 people were not working. And a lot of people lost their homes, lost their businesses. And I found myself for the first time in my life where I was failed. I'd been working since I was 12 years old. I was a paper boy back when they used to put the news on print and throw it on people's porches. And, I didn't know what to do. I kept applying for jobs. There were hiring freeze. People would bring me in and say, hey, we're going to give you an offer next week. And then they're like, there's a hiring freeze. So we burned through our emergency savings like quicker than we thought we would. 30K didn't go very far. And so I was like, hey, we've got to figure something out. Nobody's coming to help us. It's on us. We got to get off the X or we're going to be wiped out. And so, we loved coffee, and we said, if we're going to do something new, we're going to do something that we love, and we're going to do it in a way where we can give back, where we can have it be meaningful, have a mission. And so, coffee, we'd been in Europe. We'd loved cafe culture over there. And Lori's from the Pacific Northwest, the birthplace of great coffee in America. And so we didn't know what we didn't know.
So you're like, I married a mini Howard Schultz, like, let's build a coffee company. Now, when you looked at the market, though, when you analyzed the market, because I know you're an analytical guy, right? Your Intel background comes into play. Did you say this is a saturated market, but we can find a niche that we can compete in?
Yeah, what's interesting, so that we started...
Coffee is a crowded space, right?
It totally
Everything's
is.
crowded, but coffee is particularly crowded.
Particularly crowded, and it's gotten more crowded since we started. I mean, we were September 11, 2010 was when we started the company. And at the time, there weren't, a million military coffee companies.
Right.
And, we started out as online only. And that was I remember when Amazon was a discount bookseller, And so we were a little early in terms of people subscribing, food and beverage. Back then it was, I was going on YouTube and learning HTML code to build our first website,
So what I'm hearing is that you found, like, even in a crowded marketplace, you found something unique, which was like a niche that the military space, right? So you sort of a military brand within a crowded marketplace. Yeah. And then you also found something unique in that you're kind of like early stage military and then early stage e-com.
Yeah.
So you're
exactly.
kind of like, you're able to like separate the wheat from the chaff in this crowded marketplace with these kind of innovative approaches.
Yeah. And initially we were like, we knew that people wanted better coffee. Starbucks is Starbucks, but people wanted better quality coffee. And so they were seeking out their local coffee shops. And I said, babe, what if we became the local coffee for the military? But then what we found out after we got into it is the military is like, the vast majority of it is 18 to like 26. And they're drinking Rippets and Celsius, it's like we and the people that really were into coffee, they were finding their local coffee shops and their local roasters. But what we found was that our give back program, which we did because every time I deployed, I drank terrible coffee and I wanted to change that for the boys and girls downrange. Their parents really appreciated that we had sent their kids coffee at some combat outpost in Afghanistan or during the surge in Iraq. And they would then buy our coffee and they'd tell everybody. And so we really grew because of our give back program. That's not why we wanted, why we did it. We did it because we believed in it. And that's how we started to grow. And then, 6 years in, and full disclosure, about 2 years in, the plane wasn't getting lift and the runway was coming fast. And so I was like, I need to get a daytime job to help this. And that's when I went to work for Goldman Sachs in their 10,000 Small Businesses program. I was a business advisor teaching other entrepreneurs how to build their businesses, how to grow them.
So and I think this is the other, the entrepreneurial path is not a straight line, right?
No,
and a lot of businesses these days are built where you have a 9 to 5 and then you build your business 5 to 9. In fact, often can be a really excellent approach.
Absolutely.
Because you sometimes, there's always this apocryphal story, you go all in, you burn the boats or whatever. Yeah. But the truth is, if you do that, you have to eat. Yeah. You have to have a roof over your head. Sure. So you have to pay yourself, even if it's a little bit of money, and every dollar comes out of the business if you're doing that.
That's exactly
and you're probably
right.
pouring as much money into the business as you could.
Yeah, I always tell people, do not do what we did. I mean, we cashed in our 401k, paid the penalties, the taxes, all that stuff, but we didn't have an option. And you're right. I mean, we did burn the boats on the shore, but then I had to figure out a way that we were going to fund this as the money started to dwindle. And it worked out like 7 years in. We kept having people saying, hey, I'm coming out to Utah to ski. I love your coffee. I'd love to come by and meet you guys in person. And we were like, well, it's the basement. Like we can't have people come into our house. And so my wife said, I want the house back. It smells amazing, 400 pounds of freshly roasted coffee, but we need to get out of the basement. So 2 blocks from our house, we found a location where we could open our first coffee shop. And that was a little bit of a pivot for us. We took out a $150,000 small business loan, bought all the equipment, did it, paid ourselves $12 an hour plus tips, became baristas, and shipped out of the back. And then that just started to grow. And, now we've got online, wholesale, 2 coffee shops, 38 employees.
So it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. So there was a point where you felt like the business was sputtering, or you're at a real low moment.
we'd sort of topped out. The online just wasn't growing further than we thought it would.
And this is like what, circa 2014 or
2000, 2017. 2016, 17.
So in a sort of counterintuitive way, you started at e-com, but it wasn't until you launched your brick and mortar that you really started to achieve liftoff.
Yeah. And part of that was we're right at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon. There's 4 world-class ski resorts. Like we're the last coffee stop on the way. And, people would, and we've got the 2 highest rated, Google rated coffee shops in Salt Lake. Because for us, it's like drink good, do good. That's our tagline. So we have a really good, amazing coffee. We buy the best beans. We roast them to perfection. It's fresh. We send it out, we serve it to our customers. And then my wife trains all the baristas, and they are like world class. They, baristas that leave Alpha and go work other places, their coffee shop owners call us and say, I just got to tell you, thank you. For us, it's about really high quality, really great experience. So our mission statement is awesome coffee, be a warrior, have fun, and give back. So you have to have a simple mission statement, 3 to 4 bullet points, and that's what we do. And then we have our rules of engagement. After the mission statement, then what's the ROE?
Yep.
So our very first
JAG comes in, briefs the ROE.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're the JAG. You're the commanding officer and the JAG in this case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, you're everything, right?
True.
Yeah.
So true. And how would you describe what's a snapshot of the business today?
Today we are doing really well. We multi-million-dollar, we're profitable. We've decided that at this point, we really want to take care of our team. So our first rule of engagement is we win as a team. You know that. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for a team that had my back, and that is one of the biggest lessons coming out of the military is that you can't do it all yourself. You have to hire people and have people on your team that help you succeed. So we do a matching 401k for our employees after they've been with us a year. It's 6%, no vesting, dollar for dollar. You walk out the door with it. We do healthcare reimbursement. We pay a livable wage. We just started doing profit sharing this year.
Whenever I look at military or veteran-owned companies or entrepreneurs, I think there are plenty of reasons that we are behind the power curve when it comes to entrepreneurship. Some of it's just time, the function of time.
Yeah.
A lot of us spend a decade in the military building our careers, while our civilian counterparts were like building relationships and even bankrolling some capital or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of disadvantages, but I think one of the values and principles that has helped me in my business, and it sounds like it's helped you in your business, is that there's something about the nature of leadership in the military where one of your first principles is take care of your people.
Absolutely.
Right. That is like drilled into us. Like even when I was a follower, when I was 17, when I joined the military, I saw my mentors and my senior officers really, for the most part, there's always bad apples, but for the most part, most of the military leadership cadre really like does value and believe in taking care of their people.
Yeah. I mean, the first,
and that's a value you can export straight from the service.
100%. I think it's the value that, like, if you have to lead your company, and the way you lead is what makes the difference. And for me, caring about your people, that's the very first fundamental thing, is that if you truly care about them, then they're going to respect you and follow you,
Yeah. And do hard things, right? Because work is hard. It's a grind, and I don't mean a coffee grind, right? You got to ask people to do really hard things, and you're more apt to have that happen if you treat your people well. And
And generationally, things have changed a lot. You talk to anybody who's running a business now, and you talk to them about, quote unquote, this generation. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And they were raised in a different way. They have a different sense of work ethic and work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. But those fundamental principles still make the difference. Yeah.
So we have this section that we like to do. We call it rapid fire.
Okay.
I say it's like shooting steel. You get instant feedback or stream of consciousness. We're on a couch, lay down on the couch, and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Right. Yeah. Good. So best investment you ever made?
So I would say investing in myself. I used my GI Bill to get my MBA. That was great. But in terms of actual true investment, buying Apple stock when it was way, way down, I'm an Apple guy, and I knew a lot of people were, and I was like, yeah. So I jumped in pretty deep and wrote it, and then recently sold it, because pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. So
I hear you. Look, even Warren Buffett is divested from his Apple position, and he had the largest position. When Warren was out, I was out. Dumbest financial mistake you ever made?
Well, is probably early in my career. We thought we were going to die fighting the Russians, on the plains of Europe, and I spent every paycheck. I'd buy drinks for the whole bar, and I learned very quickly, pay yourself first, put that money away, So the dumbest thing was just spending money like it didn't matter and there was no tomorrow,
I hear you. I say this in a bazillion different ways, but it's like there is something cultural, call it like focused on gunslinging, focused on warfight, like whatever you want to say. It's hard because it's so drilled into you to be a warfighter or to be a warrior, that sometimes it's hard to look over the horizon and do just like a teensiest modicum of financial planning,
Just a little bit.
If we can do one thing on this damn show, it's just to nudge people
to start early and not do it.
All right. Military skill that you think is most helpful in business?
I think that team-based approach, and I would say discipline too. You have to be disciplined. You have to just, dig in, do the hard work, get it done.
Is there a book that changed your mindset?
There's a ton of books out there that I love. I would say one that I really enjoy is Let My People Surf by Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia. Yeah. I really love that. And, coming out of the military, you can't lead in the same way with civilians that you did in the military. And so...
obviously, like a commanding officer can still send somebody to rations of bread and water, right? Yeah, I've tried doing that with my employees. They rebel, they don't like that.
And especially, our employees are 18, they're that young age group, and you have to motivate them. You have to explain why. I've had to change my leadership style, and it's humbling to go from I've led people in combat to like, here's why you need to clean the bathroom well, you know?
Yeah, no, like I feel this challenge. I also love that book, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, as a lifelong surfer, whether I'm the top of the food chain or the bottom of the food chain, I think this is a good life philosophy, is to let your people surf.
Yeah.
And morning routine, first thing you do in the morning?
So, you know, every day I wake up, it's a great day, you know? So I believe in, you know, gratitude. I wake up every morning and I think, what am I grateful for this morning? And then right after that, I hit the gym and hit it hard. Yeah.
Well, I love when we have rhyming themes, and so many of my guests, now partially like we've skewed a little frogman centric in this, so to be expected, but no, it's great to have Army representation, and it's great to hear some of the things that I believe were keys to my success were parallel to yours. And that idea of staying fit, the six-pack CEO, staying young, keeping the knife sharp, like that seems to be an essential ingredient to every successful entrepreneur that I've had on the show.
Absolutely. Another great book is Outlive. It's fantastic. And basically, Dr. Attia, you know, what he says is,
Peter Attia, right?
Yeah, exactly. He said, you know, the one thing you can do to live and to extend your health span is physical activity. I mean, we as a species, you know, fought our way through the millennia, you know, and so you have to be physically fit. It's just critical.
Yeah. Well, Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah. Alpha Coffee. You brought some Alpha Coffee.
Brought some here. That's enjoying it.
Yeah. That is epic. Yeah, I'm fake enjoying it because, you know, shockingly, I shouldn't admit this, I'm a tea drinker, not a coffee
it's
drinker,
all good.
But like, I love my Alpha Coffee mug. It's epic.
Cool.
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I think like so many entrepreneurs, like you lead with mission first, you lead with your values. It's so obvious that is core to who you are, and it's core to the brand that you built. And I appreciate your hashtag still serving, continuing to serve our community. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man.
It was an honor.
Yeah. To our listeners, thank you for locking in. I hope you're taking notes, but more importantly, I hope you're taking action. We'll be back with another guest in our next episode. And in the meantime, stay tactical and stay driven. All right. Thanks for locking in with us today. Shout out to Siebert.Bauer and Siebert Financial for supporting our journey. We'll be back next week with another powerhouse conversation. More founders, more builders, and leaders who are playing offense in life and in business. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel for exclusive content and extended cuts of your favorite episodes. Until next week, stay tactical, stay driven.